again. I'm really excited to be here, part of the Buffalo fan base. This has been a long time coming for me, but a lot of my dreams are being realized, and got to give a shout out and give honor where honor is due. So, starting off, definitely shout out to Jay Spence, the King, over at Buffalo Rumblings. He hooked me up with Justice the General, and Justice has gotten me in the driver's seat, and I am ready to go here on StreamYard. So, really happy that you guys are joining us today. This is our ninth episode here at the Nickel City Crew, little post draft, little roundup here, and wanted to kind of get into some things about the Buffalo Bills and their draft picks from last week's draft. Had a great time watching the draft, had a great time being a part of the Buffalo fan base pre-draft round one coverage. It was really fun to be with all those great content creators. Had a blast, to be honest. I only planned on being on there for about maybe 20 minutes or so, and it ended up being pretty much the entire first round. So I really had a great time. Let's look at the Buffalo Bills draft. The team is changing. We know that we have high expectations coming into next year, Buffalo Bills fans. What do you expect from the Bills this upcoming season? Part of that is new additions to the team. You'll lose free agents. You'll gain some free agents. You'll lose some guys to retirement or to different injuries or whatever the case may be. We know that with Trey White coming back from his injury. But the main thing is that the draft helps supplement your team. Some of the things that you are lacking, you can pick up on in the draft. Now, Brandon Beane and the Bills did a great job of making sure that they addressed a lot of their needs pre-draft. We saw them address the defensive line. We saw them address the offensive line as well, bringing in Roger Saffold and trying to help bolster their running game. I know we have an old coach, but somebody that we're familiar with Cromer, coming back to run the offensive line. So you could see that there's definitely going to be a little bit of emphasis on running the ball, or at least doing it more effectively. Part of that with the draft and some of the draft picks that we picked up kind of line up with that line of thinking, not just running the ball more effectively, but being a more effective offense, being a more complete defense. We all know that cornerback 2 was a glaring need for the Buffalo Bills. Levi Wallace left, as we know, in free agency to the Steelers, and it kind of left a hole. Now, you could say whatever you want to say about Levi Wallace, but one of the things you can't say is that he was a rover or someone that was not technically sound. That's one of his strengths, was that he was technically sound. Now, he wasn't the most athletic. He wasn't the fastest guy of the bunch or anything like that, but he did his job to the best of his abilities. Now we've got first-round pick Kaiir Elam out of Florida. Now, this dude can fly, Buffalo Bills fans. He can fly flat out. Straight line speed. I think he was sub 4.4 in the draft, pre-draft, and coming up through his combine workouts. And one thing about Elam that I really like about the pick is that Brandon Beane said that this was the last first-round pick that they had graded on their board. Now, you don't have to believe that if you don't want to, but I think the proof is in the pudding with the fact that he traded up to make sure that he got him. I do believe him when he says that that was his last first-round grade. It was a glaring need for the Bills, opposite Trey White. We don't know how Trey is going to return from the injury. We don't know how he's going to react to the injury. So you want to have some type of insurance. And Kaiir Elam, what he does on the opposite side of Trey, when he comes back healthy, knock on wood, is that he provides a legitimate cornerback 2 who can lock up on defenders on the boundary. He can play man, he can play off man, he can play press, and he can obviously play zone. I think that this is a great addition for the Buffalo Bills. I think that the secondary is going to be beneficial and benefit from him coming into this team. He's not Levi Wallace in respects to being a part of the defense for these past few years, but he could pick it up. He's a sharp guy. I think that he can run the scheme. I was wondering during that draft show that we had on Buffalo Fan Base was how was the fit? I was asking the guys, how's the fit with Kaiir Elam on this team? And the consensus is that he can play. He can play zone. He can play off man. He can play press. He can kind of do it all. So I'm excited to see what he can do for the team. I know the Bills are excited. I know Sean McDermott and the defense, Leslie Frazier, are very excited about him coming in. So I'll be interested to watch what he does right from the bat, because I think he has a legitimate shot to be starting cornerback 2 opposite of Trey. Now, second-round pick, we traded up. If you watch the Buffalo fan base draft coverage for round 1, at the end of it, they asked all of us who we thought the Bills would be targeting on day 2. I picked James Cook. The reason I picked him was not because I think the Bills are getting ready to start pounding the ball and going backwards with their offense. I think Ken Dorsey is going to continue to progress and move forward with the offense and throwing the ball with Josh Allen. However, it's always good to have a pass catching option out of the backfield. And I think that's exactly what James Cook, does for the team. He's fast, he's elusive, shifty. He can catch the ball, which is really, really, really important for the Buffalo Bills out of the backfield. And I think that that's something that they're really specifically looking for him to do as soon as he comes into the team. I think that they want him to be a threat out of the backfield, catching the ball. I don't think that they're going to try to pound this guy in between the tackles and force him, square peg, round hole. I don't think they're going to do that. I think that they know exactly what he does well. They've watched his tape at Georgia, and I think that they're going to try to accentuate some of his talents. He is a burner. He can run. He is shifty. He loves to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's almost like a slot receiver sometimes, the way that he can catch the ball so proficiently. So I'm going to be really interested to see what he can do. I'm very excited about the pick. I don't think that they're going to be running the ball till he pukes or anything like that with to quote Nathaniel Hackett from back in the day with C.J. Spiller. I think that they're going to use him correctly. I think they're going to have him, Devin Singletary, use them in conjunction, keep them both fresh. And Zach Moss is going to have to work really hard to make this squad. If he wants a jersey on game days, he's going to have to work really hard because I think the Bills are kind of set up with their 1-2 punch with Singletary and James coming out of the backfield. So we'll see how that goes, but it is very interesting to watch. And it's something that I'm going to be paying attention to for sure because James Cook kind of feels like a missing piece to the offense that we needed. We know that the Bills targeted J.D. McKissick, and then obviously he reneged on the deal and went back to the Commanders. I think James Cook has a chance to be way better than J.D. McKissick. McKissick is a little bit longer in the tooth. This kid is young. He's talented, and I think that he can add something to the offense out of the backfield. Again, not pounding him in between the tackles, but out of the backfield. I think he can add an element that, quite frankly, we really don't have. Devin Singletary, he's got a lot of critics and he definitely has some supporters as well. I just don't think he's explosive enough. That's my only knock against him. I think he works hard. I think he knows the offense. I think the teammates like him. I just don't think he's explosive enough. He doesn't have that breakaway game changing speed, to be quite honest. And that's something that Cook has. If you're not familiar with James Cook, that is the little brother of Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings and just came fresh off a national championship with the Georgia Bulldogs. So I'm very interested to see him. Now, as we get deeper into the draft, you start to see the Bills filling for a need. You start to see them filling out their roster, and it start right away at number pick 89 for Terrell Bernard, linebacker. Now, he is rangy. He's a little bit undersized, but he reminds me a little bit of the way he covers the field and the kind of amount of space that he can cover. It reminds me a lot of Matt Milano. Now, I don't think that this is a one-for-one replacement for Tremaine Edmonds. So for all you Tremaine Edmonds supporters and lovers of Tremaine Edmonds, I've got no hate for him. I know people are ready to fight about him. I wouldn't pay him, but I do like him. I like his leadership. I like what he brings to the locker room. But there is a cap to a middle linebacker. I don't know if Terrell Bernard is his actual one-for-one replacement, but I do think that he is a special teams core. In the future, I think that this is a Tywan Jones 2.0, a guy who can come in, play special teams, get some reps, and work his way up like a Tyrell Dodson did up the chart. So we'll see what he's got to offer. Linebacker, again, he is a little bit lighter, a little bit undersized, but he's fast, he's rangy. He can go sideline to sideline, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he does in camp. I think he's plug and play, instant special teams contributor right off the bat. I don't think that there's any waiting on him to bring that to the table for the Bills on special teams. Linebacker, not exactly sure how long it's going to take him to get acclimated. He might have to beef up and bulk up just a little bit to kind of take on some of those blockers and different things that he'll face at the NFL level that he definitely did not face in the Big 12 playing at Baylor. So we'll see how that goes. Now, my favorite pick for Brandon Beane so far is something that I'm not exactly sure what to expect, and that's part of the reason, the intrigue is why I like it so much. Khalil Shakir, wide receiver, pick 148 out of Boise State. I watched this guy's highlights right after the draft. He catches the ball. I know that he is similar in size to Stephon Diggs. He is not as dynamic, but he's a route runner. He gets open, and he has great hands. What else do you want a receiver to have? Now, of course, we all want Tyreek Hill and want a guy that's going to break away from the pack and make everybody look silly, all the defenders look silly, and chuck up the deuces and all that other stuff. And that's all well and good. But you need somebody that's sure-handed. You need somebody that can get open. That's an important component for a wide receiver. How do you break down your man? How do you shake down your man? How do you get open for your quarterback? How do you create separation where it may not be a perfect throw, but you've got to go and reach behind and grab it, or you might have to go up and grab it? How do you adjust to the ball when it's in the air, when it's not exactly perfect? How do you adjust to tight coverage when a guy's draped all over you? I saw many catches with Shakir that were just, quite frankly, hands catches, not body control, not pinning it to his body or anything like that, going up with his hands and grabbing that thing. And I like that. I like a guy that catches the balls with his hands. I'd like that. So I'm going to be interested in him. He's my favorite pick of the draft so far for the Bills. I haven't even seen him put on the pads, haven't gotten to training camp or even mini camp, but I'm really intrigued by the tape that I watched. I like the fact that Brandon Beane made sure that he addressed wide receiver because we didn't have enough. As much as we love Stephon Diggs, we didn't have enough. I like the Jamison Crowder pickup. I think he's going to be good out of the slot. A perfect replacement for Cole Beasley. He's also older, so you have to be careful. You have to also remember that Gabe Davis has never done this before. I know that doesn't mean that he can't do it, but he's never done it. And that means something. He's never been asked to be wide receiver 2. He's never been asked to have that kind of big role on the offense. What happened and what was so wonderful about the divisional round against the Chiefs was that Josh was confident enough in Gabe to make sure that he fed him the ball when obviously they were draping and stacking and bracketing coverages on 14. They were making sure that Stephon did not ruin the game for them. The Chiefs defense was trying to do that. And they were effective in that. You know, Stephon did not go off, and Josh couldn't find a way to get him the ball in that respect. But it came to the detriment of their other secondary trying to cover Gabe Davis, who obviously had a career day, over 200 yards, 4 touchdown, playoff record. So I'm interested to see how he handles the load on a consistent basis. Again, I'm not saying that he can't do it. I'm very excited to see what he does in that role, wide receiver 2. But we needed more behind him. Jake Kumerow, unproven. Isaiah Hodgins, unproven. I know we lost Emmanuel Sanders. It looks like he's either going to retire or he might come back to the Bills, but it looks like it's leading towards retirement. So it's really important that we added some depth. Jake Kumerow's never done this. I like Khalil Shakir. I like it a lot. I like the tape that I watched from him, and I'm really intrigued to see what he brings to the table coming up in training camp. I'll be keeping my eye on him for sure. Now, a lot of people's had a nice joke with this and a fun mentioning this guy with the punt god, Matt Araiza. Punt god is a cool name, and it's interesting enough that he was the 3rd punter drafted. So he's got a chip on his shoulder, as they said. I've heard about it before. You heard his post-draft comments. This guy sounds like he's a little bit ticked off that he wasn't the first punter chosen. So I like that. I know we make fun of punters that they're not really a part of the team, but we sure know when we have a bad one and when they mess up field position for you. And that's no slight at Matt Hack, but I mean, he really wasn't getting the job done last year. Brandon Beane sees a need, addresses it, makes sure that it's at the forefront of his mind. I mean, that's a 180 pick. That's a high draft pick for a punter, but he did it. And I don't have any problems with it. It was a problem for us last year. Now, our offense was so explosive that we had so many games that we didn't even punt. So obviously, the punter can't be that important to this offense. But what if it is on a Sunday? What if it is another windy day like it was with the Patriots, that first Monday night matchup at the Ralph? So you got to be careful with the punters. They're important when you don't have it. And when you don't have it, it's a glaring need. And we don't have a punter right now, to be honest. I understand he's a great holder, and I hope that the punt god can learn how to be a holder as well, because this guy's got a booming leg, set FBS records for punts inside the 20 last year, set FBS records for average yardage, over almost like 60 yards on some of his punts for the greater part of the season last year for San Diego State. So this guy's the real deal. Not sure why he was the 3rd punter taken. Really don't care. He's a punter. And I'm looking for him to make sure that he booms that thing in that swirly wind at the stadium. And that's his job. Hold the ball for Tyler Bass. Make sure laces are out. Finkel and Einhorn, right? Ace Ventura. Make sure the laces are out and punt that thing. Cut it through the wind. Find a way to directional punt